In the next edition of It's About Money, my guest will be Dr. Margaret Martin. She is the founder of the LA Harmony Project. Stay tuned in the next program. Hello and welcome to another edition of It's About Money. I'm Nanette Nocon. Thank you for joining us. I'm delighted to tell you that my guest is Dr. Margaret Martin. She is the founder of the LA Harmony Project, and she also received the 2011 Presidential Citizens Medal Award. Thank you for being here, Dr. Martin.
Thank you for inviting me, Nanette.
Your program is so exciting. So there's, as you know, the show is It's About Money. So I'd like to focus on the financial aspects of the wonderful program that you have. First, I want to talk about the program as it relates to how you fund it, how it's funded, and the second part, what it means in terms of the economic contribution to our society.
Okay.
So tell me about the Harmony Project. How did it come about, and how did you think of it?
Okay, well, I was at the Hollywood Farmers Market one day, and there was a small child playing violin with a group gathered around, and it's a very busy, bustling farmers market. And through the market that day comes this posse of hardcore Los Angeles gang members. Shaved heads, teardrop tattoos, more tattoos all over, oversized clothing, and attitude. And people were getting out of their way. But when they came up to the little kid, they just stopped and listened to him. And after 5 or 6 minutes, without saying a word to one another, I watched those gang members pull out their own money and lay it gently in the child's case. I lost it. I was at UCLA at the time earning a doctorate in public health focused on what it takes to make a healthy community. And those gang members handed me the most powerful lesson I did not learn in graduate school. They taught me that they would rather be doing what that little kid was doing than what they were doing, but they never had the chance. I knew in that moment that I had to try to provide quality music education to every child. Had to be a big part of my public health work. So when I completed my doctorate, I started a program with 36 kids, a small board of dedicated volunteers, and one $9,000 check from the Rotary Club of Hollywood. Go Rotarians!
That's great. That's great. So that's how it went. And then with the money, bought instruments and
hired teachers and so forth. And the money ran out in about a minute. And the teachers had fallen in love with the kids, so they taught. I begged them to teach for free for a few months while I built up the board and raised more funds. And they did. They taught for 3 or 4 months for free. We raised more money, and today we have 1,500 kids in Harmony Project. We've built 16 full-time youth orchestras and bands in Los Angeles's highest crime gang zone neighborhoods, where dropout rates are 60 to 75%. School enrollment is a condition of participating in Harmony Project, and all of our students remain enrolled in school. Over the last 4 years, 100% of our high school seniors have graduated on time in 4 years and have gone to college, most of them the first in their families to do so.
Oh, that's amazing. So this program, Harmony Project, is it a part of the school curriculum, after-school program? So tell us about.
We're running it as an after-school program. We operate both school-based and community-based programs. The school-based programs provide lessons right on the campus where the kids go, usually at an elementary school, and on school days, and a youth orchestra program on Saturdays at the same site. The community-based programs operate out of community centers or faith or churches, also after school hours and evenings and on Saturdays.
So you got the seed money from the Rotary.
Yes.
You said wonderful Rotarians.
Yeah.
And what about continuous funding? I mean, how do you go around? Do you do the fundraising yourself? Do you have people that fundraise for you? How do you come up with the money?
It's a fundraising board. Initially the board was a $5,000 a year give or get, and then we have to raise more beyond that. Now it's a $10,000 give or get, and it may go up in the future. Our budget right now is just under $2 million for the year. So you can see that even with 14 or 15 board members, 10,000 doesn't get us very far. Doesn't get us very close to our budget. But our sources of funding break down like this. About 40% come from individuals that the board members ask.
Oh, okay.
And about 40% comes from grants. We've been very successful with grants. And the other 20% is a combination of partnerships with other community groups like the Los Angeles Philharmonic, Los Angeles City College, and Park and Recreation Department and so forth. And a little bit, a small amount, less than 2% from government, and also a small amount from corporations.
I see. So let's talk about the funding. So 40% from the board members, give or get, right? And 40% from the grants.
Right.
And then 20% from partnerships with other organizations.
Right. Well, the board members, they do a lot of work asking people, and have events, fundraising events, and so on. But we've been very fortunate. We've been blessed. We've had some local individuals really come to understand that what we're doing prevents big social problems from happening in the future with kids who have the highest needs and the fewest resources in the community. So we've been lucky.
That's great. And I think one of the greatest things, which I don't know how you muster all the energy, is you weren't getting paid to do this until recently, right?
Right.
That's amazing.
I actually formed Harmony Project from the ashes of a previous attempt. So I've been working at this work for about 14 and a half years, and I've been getting paid for the last maybe 15 months.
Oh my goodness. Oh, God bless you. So how do you manage to, you're not independently wealthy to be able to support yourself?
No, I'm not independently wealthy, but I made a wise purchase of real estate years ago. I purchased a rundown piece of property that I fixed up, so I got it at a really good price, and it's about 6,000 square feet. And it was made into a duplex in 1945 when there was a housing shortage on the coasts and the soldiers were coming home from the war. And it has a one-bedroom guest apartment. So I rent out those apartments and it covers my payments. Oh. And it's always covered my payments. So that actually permitted me to go back to school and earn my graduate degrees, and to actually to earn my bachelor's and all my degrees. And it permitted me to invest my time in this wonderful community endeavor. Eventually, I told the board, I have a son in school, I'm single now, and I have a son in college, and it's expensive. So I have to go and do something else for money, and the board said, no.
You gotta keep working.
Just stay. We'd like you to continue to do what you're doing. So it's a great pleasure to have it's always a pleasure to do something you absolutely love.
Well, I'm just amazed at your energy to come up with such a great project and program and not get paid for a very long time and put yourself through school and earn advanced degrees. So I think that's just really a wonderful, wonderful story and inspiring to a lot of people. So that's great.
Well, thank you. It's the jobs in public health were in more what's called secondary and tertiary intervention, which is after something bad happened or after something really bad happened. Primary prevention is to prevent bad stuff from happening in the first place. Secondary intervention is when something, negative has happened, so nothing worse happens. And tertiary, well, that would be a prison program, when things are all messed up. Well, in this country, we don't do a good job about preventing problems from happening in the first place. We pay no attention, and then we throw money at it when it's a big mess. For instance, this is an example. In 1990, we had more measles deaths in Los Angeles County than we had had in the previous 10 years. Why? We had cut funding to immunization programs. So no one was seeing measles, but that's the point. You don't want to be seeing measles. So when they didn't see measles, they thought they didn't have to spend the money on the immunization program. And then they got measles, and people lost their lives. It's like Katrina. We knew those things could happen. We didn't prevent it. We didn't take action. We have to get off our butts and take action. we've turned into a nation of spectators. We didn't start out a nation of spectators. Americans have always been a people that did things. We see ourselves as doers, but we've become a nation of spectators. Americans today spend their time and their treasure watching other people do things instead of doing things themselves. So,
and what you've done is you're actually doing things, and you have a lot of teachers doing things.
And we're engaging disadvantaged kids in the study, practice, and performance of music, and we're building music ensembles, youth orchestras with these kids in their own neighborhoods, tuition free for their whole childhood. But this is a way to teach kids discipline, persistence, how much work it takes to achieve at a high level anything, fill in the blank. Because once you develop these habits of mind, you can apply them to your school, to your family life, to anything. If you want to do something worthwhile, no pain, no gain.
Right.
You've got to put in the time.
Right.
Or what Malcolm Gladwell in his book Outliers calls concerted cultivation. So middle and upper income families know about concerted cultivation, and they're cultivating their kids. They work darn hard, and they're not always successful keeping their kids, helping their kids have successful lives. But what is it for the kids from the lowest income families whose parents are maybe working multiple jobs? They don't have English, maybe they don't have a background that nobody reads at home. How are these kids going to develop the habits of mind they need for success in school and in life? We know who they are.
Right.
We can do something about it. But the other question is, how do you get kids to sign up for a long-term mentoring program for years?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you say, oh, come to a mentoring program, kids are going to go, what? But if you say, hey, you want to learn to make music? We've got some really fun teachers, we've got instruments, and you can learn to make any kind of music you like right here in your own neighborhood. The only catch is you got to stay enrolled in school. Oh, okay. We got hundreds of kids on waiting lists.
Oh my goodness, that's fantastic. So basically, the caveat to being a part of the program is to stay in school, which is
yes. It's all about future ideation, staying in school, having targets and goals for your life. And we offer scholarships to our high school graduates, $5,000 scholarships. They're paid out over 4 years. You've got to take and complete at least 12 units each quarter, and receive at least a 2.5 grade point average, and then you get paid, that portion.
And no matter what they study, it doesn't
no
have
matter
to be
what,
music.
this is not a music program. Music is the means. We have a lot of fun, but the point is to build citizens. We used to call ourselves citizens when I was a child. We traded that word in for another word, which means a completely different thing. For the last 20 or 30 years, we stopped calling ourselves citizens. We call ourselves consumers now. It's a very different word.
Sure.
Best thing that a consumer can do for his or her country is go shopping, which was what President Bush advised the country do after 9/11. But what we really needed to do is to have citizens building healthier communities right where they live.
Sure. Yeah, it's kind of a short-term fix to go out there and buy something, whereas being a citizen takes a little bit more thought and
well, a lot more work. And maybe, President Bush came from a very wealthy family. That might be what his family does. If they don't feel good, they go shopping. But the rest of plenty of people in this country don't have that option.
Yeah, don't have the money, so
yeah.
That's great. That's an interesting perspective, because truly it's come down to economics. What's the bottom line? So if shopping can do it quickly, that's kind of mentality. But creating citizens or becoming citizens take a lot more effort, like you said.
Well, the 50 largest cities in this country have dropout rates that have hit 50%. Right here in Rochester, the dropout rate for the city public schools is 54%. Kids who drop out, this is not cost effective.
Right.
Because these are never going to be tax payers. They are always going to be tax receivers. So we need to get serious for our own futures and to create healthy communities for ourselves. We need to get serious helping the most vulnerable kids get through school and be successful.
So really, real economics there. Yeah, right.
There's a lot of economics. Kids who drop out of school have an 8 times increased chance of going to prison. What does that cost? I mean, the difference between somebody working a job and paying into the tax base or being supported in a prison, the U.S. now is number one in incarceration rate of any country in the world. I mean, it's insane. This makes no financial sense. Right. We have more than 25%. We have a more than 25% higher incarceration rate than the number 2 country, which used to be Russia, but Russia recently slid down to 5th place. Our incarceration rate is 6 times greater than that of Canada, 6 times greater than that of Great Britain, which has a huge immigrant population, so you can't go talking about, oh, it's because of immigrants, and a 6 times greater incarceration rate than China.
That's a shame.
What are we getting for our dollars?
Right, right, absolutely, absolutely. Absolutely. We'll take a quick break. So exciting, and we'll take a quick break. My guest is Dr. Margaret Martin, and my name is Nanette Nocon, and you're tuning in to It's About Money. We'll be right back. And we're back. I'm Nanette Nocon, and my guest is Dr. Margaret Martin, founder of the LA Harmony Project. Thanks again for being here.
Thank you.
I want to talk a little bit more about, we have to decide whether our community members will be taxpayers or tax receivers. It's a really blatant description of our choices in life, right? Whether we study and have the ability to make a good living, or we don't pursue education and we just become beneficiaries of the services that our government provides. So tell me about the impact. Let's talk again about the impact of what music does for the children in terms of leading them to education.
Well, the wonderful thing about music is it takes a long time to learn to play well. And as our kids have told us many times, you can't just practice one day a week and learn to play. You won't learn to play. So you have to practice every day. And then they say, oh, I was thinking about that, and I started studying going at my schoolwork the same way. And now my grades are out the roof, and I'm getting into more advanced classes. So if you've got a kid whose parents don't have much education, there's no history of investing into themselves. There's no history of incremental skills building or investing in intellectual capacity or capital. These are new ideas for many kids in our underclass. So music gives you this wonderfully objective way to teach those skills, because you can either play or you can't. And you can't be tricky and get over on anybody. If you don't practice, you sound bad. and here's where peer pressure becomes the most valuable thing in the world. You've probably never heard peer pressure used other than in a negative sense. But we love peer pressure, because peer pressure, here's what happens with peer pressure. Someone who doesn't practice goes into a section in a youth orchestra or a hip hop band, and they sound terrible. And the ones that practice go, oh, you didn't practice. And then, because this is the way Harmony Project works, they say, you want me to help you get through that. And so they take them away and work on that section. And little by little, the kids learn how to build a portfolio of skills. Because nobody wants to be the tax receiver. That's not a fun life. That's a terrible life. It doesn't afford a lot of options. You're enormously constrained. People treat you like you don't matter. You can't get things for your kids. You can't get things for yourselves. You have very few choices in your life. So it's not like anybody says, oh, I'm going to really work the system and I'm going to be on welfare for my life. I mean, if you drop out of school, if you're a girl, you've got a 9 times increased chance of being a single mom. And I promise you, that's a challenging life. So I tell my kids, yeah, going to school is hard work. Learning to play music is hard work. But you know what's really hard? What's really hard is living in poverty your whole life. That is really hard.
So basically what you're saying is that music allows the child to understand what competence means. And,
Exactly.
and in learning how to play the music and being part of the group, the band, they learn how to live a life of patterned learning, and they could apply that to their other areas of study.
To anything that they want to learn. They learn the tools, the skills they need to be successful. Along the way, they learn to make music, which everybody loves. So nobody doesn't want to join the music program. So it's kind of a good thing.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And the option, like you said, if it's on the tertiary type of situation where someone is incarcerated, the cost of not being educated and getting into a life of incarceration is just too expensive for the rest of the population.
Well, that's what we've done. We need to look. It's not working. If dropout rates are at 50% in our 50 largest cities, and we have the largest prison population of any country in the world, and we know that that prison population comes largely from people who grew up in low-income families of color. Come on, this isn't rocket science. We know where we have to focus our attention. We need to focus them on 6 and 7 and 8-year-old kids of color growing up in poor families. And if you offer them a chance to learn music, you know what they say? Pick me, pick me. It's great. You know, I'm not talking about, yes, we have kids who come in middle school and high school, but a lot of kids are too cool for school by then. But the 7 and 8-year-olds are going to be 14 and 15 in about a minute. And if take them when they're pick me, and then by the time they get to be 14 or 15, they're already helping you deliver the program as a trained and supervised peer mentor. They're holding a position of responsibility. They've got a cool little ensemble that they gig around town with. I mean,
it's a great alternative.
And they're doing really well in school.
Right.
So
yeah, that's wonderful all the way around. So no, if somebody like in a community here in Rochester, you'd mentioned that the city has a 50% dropout rate. 54, I think. Really bad. So for our viewers who are listening to us, what can someone do? I mean, what can they do about that? I mean, there's some programs here in town that are available, like we learned about the Strings of Success earlier, you and I, and things like that. But do people then find regular citizens, I guess, could just say, well, let me look for a program that I could support and help?
Well, there's an effort underway to provide that kind of support right here in Rochester. It's being led by Dean Jamo Rossi from the Eastman School of Music, and they've created a little group called the Rock Collaborative. No, the Rock Music Collaborative, that's it. The Rock, R-O-C, Music Collaborative. And the idea is to raise funds to bring the kind of program that I'm describing to Rochester. I mean, after all, you've got fine music schools. You've got kids from middle and upper income homes who are playing very well, who can work as TAs and peer mentors to help their less advanced peers learn music. As long as you only hire really joyful people who really like kids, you know, and they all have to be fingerprinted and background checked, of course, but you only hire Pied Pipers who are very joyful, and you build ensembles right in their own neighborhoods, like Patty Yarnell is doing in the school number 19, where she has her Strings of Success. Those kids are doing really well.
Yes, they are. Yeah, I think it's fantastic. So basically what we're saying is that just to support organizations like that Strings for Success and the Rock Music Collaborative. Yeah, I think that's great. And you're absolutely right. In the Rochester community, there's a lot of musical talent, and I think it was you who told me about the percentage of music majors who actually work in music. Right? There's not that many people.
Well, this was I attended a luncheon with or a dinner with Joe Polisi, the president of Juilliard, some years ago, and he mentioned that only fewer than 10% of the graduates of Juilliard the music graduates of Juilliard ever make a living in music, which means that our communities all over the country, if that's the case with Juilliard, think what it is with other music schools. So that means we've got highly skilled musicians all available, trained all over the country that we can activate in service to our most vulnerable kids. And I promise you, doing this kind of work is so joyful because you watch the kids discover the truth about their own creative potential, and you watch their parents start to look at them with new eyes, and their lives just bloom. You see them graduate from school, go on to college. Rochester is known as one of the top 10 cities in the country for volunteers. It's got the highest percentage of college students in the population of any community in the country. It's filled with innovation and inventiveness, but we can do better than we're doing. We need to harness some of that innovation and volunteer spirit and target the most disadvantaged kids. And right here in Rochester, at the University of Rochester, there are a pair of psychologists who have described exactly why a program like Harmony Project works. They came up with a theory that they call self-determination theory. And the way this theory works is they say that human well-being is based on three factors: autonomy, competence, and relatedness. That when you feel you have autonomy, when you feel competent, you are competent. And when you have good connections with other people, we're good. Our mental health is good, our productivity is good, everything is good. If any one of these things is not, any one of these needs is not met, these basic human needs, we're not happy campers. Our mental health isn't good, our productivity slides, and our lives just don't work well. Well, what are you doing with when you teach a kid to make music? Autonomy. Nobody learns to play that instrument except that child. Competence. Little by little, they're learning to play the instrument better and better. Relatedness. They're playing with others in an ensemble, and they're performing for community groups. Relatedness. There it all is. And researchers Rich Ryan and Ed Deasy at Rochester University proved that if you boost those three things, academic motivation goes up the roof.
And I bet that's the case for every job too, that all those three things need to be there to be happy.
Those are just basic human needs. So autonomy, competence, and relatedness. If you're not doing well, figure out which one of those or which ones of those need to be boosted and do something about those, and you'll be good.
Yeah, and it's wonderful that music allows that to happen.
Yeah, and it also gives kids a non-pharmacologic stress reliever and mood elevator, because over and over our students tell us that when they have a really bad day, they come home, they've had to put up with a lot of junk in their lives, somebody's been in their face, whatever, they take out their instrument and they play, and after half an hour or an hour, they're good.
It's a far better and cost-effective way of feeling good.
The side effects are better grades in school and better mood, not any of those negative things. Very easy on the liver.
Yes, that's great. That's great. Dr. Martin, it's been a pleasure having you at our program today. It's really been enlightening, and it's been joyful to have you talk about the benefits of having music in our lives. And congratulations on your great job with the LA Harmony Project, and for being here in Rochester for a bit of time with us.
Thank you very much.
And thank you, our guests, for joining us today. I'm Nanette Naucon. It's About Money, and my guest again is Dr. Margaret Martin of the LA Harmony Project.
Thanks for tuning in to today's show. If you have any questions for It's About Money, please email Nanette at nnocon@aol.com. This program was produced through Penfield Television in Penfield, New York.